to Tennessee next, where after finishing with the worst record in the NFL, the team made a move in the front office, firing GM Ran Carthon. As Adam Schefter pointed out, Carthon spent 2 years in Tennessee with 2 different head coaches, still has 4 years remaining on his contract. A new Titans GM will make the #1 overall pick, worth remembering that as well. So, Roz, what more can you tell us about this decision?
So the power in the organization will lie with a man named Chad Brinker, who is the president of football operations. He's been there 2 years, 13 years before that with the Green Bay Packers. And Brinker, in a statement to the team's website today, talked about what they're looking for in the next GM. He said they want somebody with a scouting background, somebody with extensive experience scouting college players for the pros, setting a draft board. So you can see what the issue is here in Tennessee. They believe the new GM's job will be to evaluate talent and put a roster together that way. But Brinker will have the final say over the roster, regardless of who they bring in as general manager.
Interesting. You know, I mean, thinking about Tennessee, I feel like when we talk about whether these jobs, coaches, GMs, are attractive, we need to focus more on the stability of ownership, because just looking at everything that's happened there over the last few years, the word that comes to mind is erratic. I mean, going back to 2022, they get embarrassed by A.J. Brown on TV, so they fire Amy Adams Strunk, the owner, fires John Robinson. You think Mike Vrabel's got more power, but then they pair him with Carthon, and then they fire Mike Vrabel. And then you think, okay, well, now Ran Carthon's got the juice, and this is a rebuild, and they must know that it's a rebuild, right? Well, no, because they didn't get enough wins to her liking, so she fired Ran Carthon. And that's not to say that I agreed with all of his signings and draft picks necessarily, but it seems to me that ownership in Tennessee, one, has a misapprehension of who their roster is, the fact that they're rebuilding, and a deep lack of patience. I mean, she's just pressing the red button over and over and over. And if I'm on the outside looking at this and looking at that job, Dan, I would go with a lot of hesitation, because the ownership is what remains.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because you brought up when they fired Vrabel. And remember at the time they were saying there were philosophical differences between Carthon and Vrabel and what they wanted to do, what he wanted to do. I guess the question is, like, what is the philosophy?
Exactly. What is the long-term vision for this franchise? Because it's apparent that this is an owner who seems motivated by short-termism.
Go ahead, Graz.
Yeah, Mina is right that it seemed like it should have been a rebuild, but the Titans actually spent a pretty fair amount of money in free agency last year. Remember, I mean, they traded for L'Jarius Sneed, gave him a contract. They signed Calvin Ridley. So they were expecting to be competitive, and they very much were not. And, you know, I think a big factor here is Will Levis, who was drafted high in the second round 2 years ago with the hope that he could be a franchise quarterback, has not panned out. And it feels like Ran Carthon has borne the brunt of that and some of these other decisions. The Titans had higher hopes for this year than, oh, we'll have the #1 pick.